You know that old saying, love is blind? Yeah, well, in my case, love wasn't just blind. It was deaf, dumb, and apparently wearing noise-canceling headphones from Costco. I should have seen it coming from a mile away. But when you're under the spell of what I now call toxic love, your brain starts outsourcing common sense to the nearest dumpster. So there I was, thinking I had just landed the girl of my dreams. The kind of girl you see in Netflix rom-coms, except instead of a quirky but charming personality, she had a PhD in emotional manipulation and a minor in revenge psychology. We met at a summer BBQ, the kind where someone's uncle burns the burgers and the potato salad has been sitting in the sun long enough to qualify as a biohazard. She walked in like she owned the place. Sunglasses, high ponytail, and that confident smirk that says, "I know exactly what I'm doing and I dare you to question me." My buddy Steve swears he saw her glance around like a predator scanning for prey. I, being the idiot protagonist in my own betrayal documentary, was more focused on her laugh. It wasn't even a normal laugh. It had this musical quality, like a ringtone you can't afford but still want to hear again. We talked, we clicked, and before I knew it, we were inseparable. Or so I thought. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. The first red flag? She mentioned her ex on the second date. Not in a sad, I'm still healing kind of way, but in this casual, oh, he's probably stalking my Instagram right now tone, followed by a wink. She would post photos of us, but somehow the captions were always inside jokes that I didn't get. At the time, I told myself she was just quirky. Now I realize it was all part of her long con, an elaborate social media chess game where I was the pawn and her ex was the king she was trying to corner. And I wasn't just any pawn. I was the flashy pawn, the kind you parade around to make your opponent nervous. She'd drag me to these coincidentally public spots, like the coffee shop her ex used to frequent, the gym where he still had a membership, and once, I kid you not, the parking lot of his mom's church. "Babe, they've got the best food trucks here on Sundays," she said with a straight face, as if the food trucks were the main attraction, and not the fact that we were 15 feet away from his family's minivan. That should have been my cue to run. But no, I was too busy thinking about how her hand felt in mine, like we were in some epic American love story. It wasn't until later that I realized I was basically the stunt double in her personal revenge movie. And just to be clear, this wasn't a sweet, he cheated so I'm just moving on revenge. No, this was strategic, Cold War-era psychological warfare with an emotional budget bigger than a Marvel movie. She'd drop casual comments about how much happier she was now, always within earshot of mutual friends who, coincidentally, were still in contact with her ex. She orchestrated scenarios like a general planning battle formations, group hangouts where she accidentally bumped into him, with me conveniently looking like I'd just stepped out of a men's fragrance commercial. Meanwhile, I was telling myself this was love, that this woman was my person, that I'd finally found someone worth introducing to my family. And oh, she met my family all right. She charmed them so thoroughly that my mom started following her on Facebook and even invited her to Thanksgiving. The irony? She spent most of Thanksgiving in the kitchen taking selfies with the pumpkin pie, which, now that I think about it, she never ate. Everything about her was curated, polished, and ready for public consumption. But like every perfect Instagram feed, the reality was messier, full of untagged photos, bad lighting, and unfiltered moments she didn't want me to see. Still, I played along, because when you're in the middle of toxic love, you convince yourself it's just passion, that the drama is what makes it exciting. You ignore the small betrayals, the suspicious DMs, the way she always seemed to be texting someone else just out of frame. And deep down, you know something's off, but you don't want to believe it, because believing it means admitting you've been played. I didn't know it then, but I was just the warm-up act, the teaser trailer, the "look at what you lost" billboard she was renting by the hour. And let me tell you, tickets to that show were expensive. Not in money, but in time, trust, and pieces of my self-respect I'm still trying to get back. If you've never had your heart drop into your stomach like a bowling ball, let me tell you, it's not a romantic feeling. It's not poetic. It's more like when you bite into what you think is a chocolate chip cookie and realize too late it's raisin. That was me the night I found out the truth. And of course, it wasn't in some quiet, dignified setting like the movies. No, this was a Friday night in a dive bar that smelled like spilled beer and questionable life choices. The music was loud, the lighting dim enough to hide bad decisions, and my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend-to-be, was 3 margaritas deep and ready to audition for the role of most unfiltered human alive. We were sitting in one of those sticky vinyl booths, the kind that makes you wonder if they've been cleaning it with actual cleaner or just wiping it down with old napkins. She was laughing way too loud at something on her phone, and I swear I saw her scrolling through an Instagram profile that I vaguely recognized. And then, without warning, without a single ounce of hesitation, she turned to me and said, word for word, "You know you were just for show, right? Just to make him jealous. And it worked. You're basically the best prop I've ever had." Now, I don't know how you react to betrayal of that caliber, but my brain went into what I call screenshot mode. That's when your mind freezes the moment like a still frame from a documentary titled Cheating Hearts, The Reckoning. I just sat there, staring at her, while the jukebox in the background played some upbeat song that felt wildly inappropriate for the situation. I tried to process it. I'd seen the warning signs, her obsession with being accidentally in the same place as her ex, the cryptic captions, the way she'd introduce me to people and emphasize my job title like it was a trophy. But hearing her say it out loud, that was next level. It was like watching the behind-the-scenes footage of your own humiliation, complete with director's commentary. She kept talking, by the way. Because apparently, toxic love doesn't just cheat on you. It gives you a TED Talk about it. She explained in vivid detail how her family thought it was such a power move to show up at events with me, how her ex had been losing his mind seeing us together, and how she'd timed certain Instagram stories for maximum emotional damage. She even laughed, while telling me this, like I should be proud of my role in her revenge plot. At one point, I swear she leaned in and said, "You're honestly the perfect guy for this. You've got that approachable but successful vibe. Like you're handsome, but not so handsome he'd think I was making it up." Which is just, wow. It's one thing to find out you've been used, it's another to find out you've been strategically cast in someone's petty soap opera. Now here's where my family training kicked in. My mom always said, if you're gonna leave, leave with dignity. So I didn't flip the table, I didn't throw my drink, I didn't even raise my voice. I just smiled. Yes, smiled, slid out of that sticky booth, grabbed my jacket and said, "Enjoy the show without me." Then I walked out, slow and steady, like a cowboy leaving town at the end of a western, except instead of a horse, I had an Uber driver named Carl. Of course, in true conspiracy theory fashion, part of me wondered if this was all staged. Like maybe her ex was actually sitting in a dark corner of the bar, watching the whole thing unfold like it was an episode of The Bachelor, Revenge Edition. I half expected a camera crew to pop out and tell me I'd been punked. But no, this was real life, and the sting was 100% authentic. In the Uber, I replayed her words over and over. Best prop I've ever had. It was almost impressive, the way she could distill months of betrayal into a single sentence. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized she wasn't even sorry. There was no remorse, no awkward backtracking, no "I didn't mean it that way." She meant it exactly that way. I'll admit, there was a part of me that wanted revenge, that wanted to blast her on social media, send a group text to everyone we knew, maybe even make a TikTok with dramatic music and captions spilling all the tea. But another part of me, maybe the saner part, knew that the best kind of revenge is the quiet kind. The kind where you just disappear from their life and let the absence speak louder than any post ever could. By the time I got home, I'd made my decision. She wasn't going to get another second of my time, my energy, or my dignity. And I wasn't going to play the wounded ex-boyfriend role in her story either. If she wanted drama, she'd have to write it herself. I was officially out of the script. People always say time heals all wounds, but they never specify how much time or whether you're supposed to be refreshing your ex's Instagram in the meantime. In the days after I walked out of that sticky bar booth, my life felt like a Netflix show that had just killed off the main love interest. There was an awkward pause, some filler episodes, and a lot of me trying to figure out who I was without being someone's revenge prop. At first, I tried the classic American breakup recovery plan. Overbook my schedule, eat questionable amounts of takeout, and pretend I was thriving. I joined a gym, not because I wanted abs, but because I needed a place where I could sweat out the betrayal and avoid running into her or her family. My trainer, a guy named Chad, who looked like he'd been sculpted by a Greek god with a protein shake addiction, kept telling me, "Bro, best revenge is looking good." I wasn't sure if he meant for her or for Instagram, but I nodded anyway. The first week was rough. Every place in town reminded me of her. The coffee shop where she made me hold her phone while she took candid selfies. The park where she once pretended to trip so I'd have to catch her, which in hindsight was less romantic comedy and more cheap TikTok stunt. Even the grocery store had landmines. There was an entire aisle of her favorite oat milk glaring at me like it knew all my secrets. Social media was worse. Instagram stories of her at brunch, laughing with people I thought were our mutual friends, but who apparently had been team her the whole time. That's the thing about toxic love. When it ends, you don't just lose the person, you lose the extras in your shared movie. The betrayal doesn't stop at cheating or manipulation. It's a social hit job. Suddenly you're unfollowed, untagged, and erased like you never existed. But here's the plot twist. No one tells you. If you survive the first couple of weeks, life starts to feel lighter. I could go places without calculating whether she'd be there. I could post on my own Instagram without worrying about whether it would fit her narrative. I started running in the mornings, which, for a non-runner, felt like flirting with death. But there was something freeing about it, like every mile was another piece of her drama I was leaving behind. Of course, in true American small-town fashion, gossip traveled faster than Wi-Fi. People started telling me things. "Hey, did you hear her ex is seeing someone?" Or, "She got into a fight with one of her friends at that rooftop bar." I pretended not to care, but let's be honest. There's a tiny gremlin in all of us that feeds on that kind of information. Then came the first sign of karma. My buddy Alex sent me a screenshot. Her ex had posted a photo with a new girlfriend, and the caption wasn't just a soft launch, it was a full-blown engagement announcement. The ring, the hashtags, the family congratulations in the comments. I stared at it longer than I care to admit. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt nothing, which weirdly was the best feeling of all. Still, I kept my poker face. No petty posts, no subtweets, no accidental likes on shady memes. I figured if karma was really on the job, it didn't need my help. And from the way the whispers around town got louder, I knew the dominoes were starting to fall. People said she'd been uninvited from a friend's wedding, that she'd been taking a break from work because of stress. Translation, the web she spun was starting to tangle her up. Meanwhile, I was building my own life back up. I started hanging with old friends I'd neglected during the relationship. Went to family dinners without the looming fear she'd turn it into a photo shoot. Even started dating casually, not revenge dating, but actual human connection. I realized the best way to get over a betrayal wasn't to plot your own revenge, but to stop playing the game entirely. Still, every now and then, I'd see her pop up online, always smiling, always perfectly filtered. But if you looked close enough, there was something different in her eyes. Not sadness exactly, more like the panic of someone who knows their audience is shrinking. And that's when I knew. Karma wasn't coming like a thunderclap. It was already here, quietly dismantling the empire she'd built on manipulation and toxic love. I didn't need to watch it happen. But let's be real, of course I was going to watch. Just from a safe distance, with popcorn. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but karma? Karma is a 5-course meal prepared by a chef who takes their sweet time and then personally delivers it to your table with a smug little bow. By the time the final act of this messy saga rolled around, I wasn't even trying to keep tabs on her. Life was good. I had my own rhythm back. My mornings didn't start with passive-aggressive texts, and my evenings didn't involve sitting in a car while she took just one more selfie in the golden hour. But as fate, or the American small-town gossip network would have it, news travels. It started with a text from my friend Megan. "You will not believe this." Now, Megan is the kind of person who thinks spotting a celebrity look-alike at Target is breaking news, so I wasn't expecting much. But then she sent me the link. Her ex, the one she built our entire relationship around making jealous, had just gotten married. Not engaged, married. And the bride? Oh, you're gonna love this. The bride was one of her oldest friends, someone she used to post with all the time, hashtagging Jahad family and hashtag sisters for life. If that isn't poetic justice dipped in betrayal sauce, I don't know what is. Apparently the wedding had been kept quiet, invite only, no social media hints until the day of, which meant she had no idea until the photos started flooding in. Full-blown Pinterest, perfect ceremony, beach sunset, champagne tower, the whole 9 yards. And judging by the screenshots Megan sent me of her cryptic, rage-filled Instagram stories afterward, she did not take it well. Think meltdown, but with a filter. But karma wasn't done. Oh no, this was a deluxe package. A week after the wedding bombshell, I heard from another friend that she'd been passed over for a big promotion at work. Something about team trust and professional boundaries, which is HR speak for, "We don't want to deal with your drama anymore." She apparently tried to rally her work friends for support, but guess what? Half of them had quietly distanced themselves after realizing she was the common denominator in every workplace blow-up. Then came the family fallout. I'm told her own cousin unfollowed her on Instagram, which, in the unspoken laws of American social media, is basically a declaration of war. And to top it off, her apartment lease was ending, but her landlord suggested she not renew after a series of disagreements with the neighbors. Translation, she burned that bridge too. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I was above enjoying this. Sure, I wasn't actively plotting revenge anymore, but watching karma work its slow, surgical magic? That's a spectator sport. It wasn't about schadenfreude. It was about closure. About knowing that toxic love and cheating-adjacent manipulation don't get lifetime immunity. The real twist came when I bumped into her, pure accident, at a grocery store. She was in sweats, no makeup, hair in a messy bun that didn't look like the curated Instagram version. She saw me, froze for a second, and then forced a smile. I just nodded. No smug remarks, no gloating. And that's when I realized this was the real revenge. Not her downfall, not the betrayal she was now tasting from her so-called friends. Just me, existing, happy, completely unbothered. She tried small talk. "Hey, how have you been?" That old tone that once hooked me now sounded flat. I told her life was good, work was busy, family was great. She nodded like she wanted to say more, but there was nothing left between us, just history, and not the romantic kind. I walked away first. No dramatic exit, no mic drop. Just left her standing there next to the discount cereal aisle, holding a basket full of frozen dinners. And as I stepped outside into the cool air, I swear I could feel the last thread of her control over my life snap. Here's the thing about karma. It doesn't always come as a lightning bolt. Sometimes it's a slow burn. Sometimes it's 1,000 little inconveniences that pile up until the person who thought they were untouchable finally realizes they're not. And sometimes it's as simple as running into the one person you can't spin the narrative with because they've already read the whole book. That night, I sat on my porch with a beer, watching the sun dip below the horizon. No Instagram story, no audience, just me, the quiet, and the satisfaction of knowing that I didn't have to lift a finger. Karma had done the heavy lifting, and it had done it beautifully.